Wel, shwmae pawb and croeso a coginio ar y hyd. Hello everyone and welcome to the At Happy Cymru Cook Along. My name is Richard and heddiw, today, we're going to be making some wonderful hot cross buns as part of our second day of our Easter style cook-alongs. You can see these hot cross buns just there, and this room, these have just finished cooking, smells absolutely amazing. So just as with all of our cook-alongs, now that I've sorted out my computer bits and I'm live on the Facebook page, I just quickly need to go and wash my hands and then I will be back in the room. So this is your 21 second and 15 millisecond sort of warning. Go and grab yourself a little drink. Go and grab yourself a pen and paper if you want to jot down any notes of today's session, and I will be back in literally 20 seconds and 53 milliseconds. I will be back in a couple of moments. Hello everyone, if you've just joined me, welcome to this afternoon's Easter cook-along. I'm just quickly washing my hands and I will be back in the room in a couple of moments. As you can see on the table, we're actually making some wonderful little hot cross buns today. These have just come out of the oven and this room smells absolutely amazing. Just getting a little paper towel to dry my hands. That goes into the bin. I've got a little bit of antibacterial gel just here, and you'll be pleased to know once I've wiped this in, I'm back in the room. So let's get started, and as you know, with all of the cook-alongs, I like to start with the official part and then it will very quickly go downhill from there. So my official part today is shwmae pawb and croeso a coginio ar y hyd. Hello everyone and welcome once again to the cook-along. As you know, as part of the Happy Cymru cook-alongs, this week we are doing 3 back-to-back Easter style cooking sessions. Yesterday we did some Easter pizzas. Today we've got the star, one of my favourite things, which are the hot cross buns, and tomorrow we're going to be doing some Easter style sort of biscuits decorated in sort of Easter egg style, and they're wonderful as well. So just as I said, we're going to be concentrating on the traditional sort of hot cross buns which you would have on Good Friday, as it is today. These are my version, and these have just finished cooking. I'm just checking if I can pick that up, and they've just finished cooking, been out for about 10 minutes, and you can see they look absolutely amazing and smell absolutely bendigedig. So I'm just going to pop those just behind us, and I'm hoping that if I click just there, yes, it has, there we go, the ingredients list for our hot cross buns has just come up on the screen for us just there, and I'm just going to press another button because you're able to see it on the screen, but I can now see it on my screen in front of me just there. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to sort out our liquid, right? For the liquid of our bread making today, we're actually going to be making on hot cross buns. There is a sweet sort of dough, is what we call an enriched dough, right? So rather than just using the bog standard water, I'm going half and half today, right? I'm a proper Welsh boy. I've got half milk and half sort of water just there. I'm actually just going to pop that in the microwave on sort of a really low heat, just for 20 to 25 seconds, just to sort of warm it up a little bit. I don't know what I'm doing there. So I'm just going to allow that to warm up. You could put it into a saucepan and heat it up. We don't want it boiling hot because that will kill the yeast, right? But we want it to be a little bit warm because that speeds up the rising process. Just while that is warming up, what we've also got is we have got our flour, right? And for our flour, traditionally, if we were making pizzas, and yesterday I said that if you were making pizzas, you could either use strong bread flour or plain flour. For when you're making bread rolls or a loaf of bread or something like that, you must use that strong bread flour because it's got that higher gluten content. I'm going to turn that off now. That higher gluten content, which makes your bread nice and stretchy, which allows the yeast to make our bread rise. Okay, so I'm going not half and half, but 2/3 and a third, right? So I've got 2/3 sort of white wholemeal bread flour just there, and I've got a third wholemeal. So I've got about 200 grams. I've got 150 grams approximately of my sort of white, and I've got 50 grams of my wholemeal. So it works out 3/4 white in this measurement and a quarter sort of wholemeal. But you average is about 2/3 white to a third sort of wholemeal. Any more wholemeal in there, right? And I was saying this to someone that I was cooking with virtually yesterday. Any more wholemeal and your bread will be like a brick, right? It won't be stretchy enough. So you can do up to half and half, but a quarter or a third sort of wholemeal makes your bread a little bit better, right? Then we've got our packet of yeast, and you want approximately 200 grams of flour just in there. And we've got a packet of yeast, and just as always, I can't open my packet, so excuse me 1 second. I'm just going to pop, open that up just like that. And this is that fast action yeast, which means that it takes one process of the rising process out of it, right? So if I was using fresh yeast, it would be there for 4 hours. Sourdough culture, 24 hours. This is about 45 minutes in the making. You can see it looks very much like sand, right? I haven't been down Bali Island, even though I'm allowed down Bali now, right? It's not sand, it's yeast, right? Now, because it's an enriched dough, we're going to enrich it with a little bit of that naughty sugar, right? And I've got a teaspoon just here. You want approximately, I think the recipe card says 1 teaspoon of sugar. So make sure that it's a heap spoonful. And if no one's watching, I'm watching for the sugar, please. I can add another one just like that, right? 1 for luck, right? Then I've got my mixed spice. Now then, you either love it or you hate it. I quite like it. I like that sort of spicy sort of flavour. So it's between half to 1.5 teaspoons, right? So I've got a dessert spoon here. I quite like that spicy sort of flavour. So I'm going to add 1.5 teaspoons of my mixed spice just there. The final thing that we've got is we have got some mixed dried fruit, and this is the bog standard cheapy mixed dried fruit. If you want to make it more plump, you could put some orange juice on top and let it soak it in. You really don't have to though if you don't want to. So we've got those just in there like that, and I'm just going to give that a little mix just as so in one direction. A joke, and I didn't even mention it then, did I? So you're going to give it a little mix in one direction, just like that, until everything is nicely coated, right? And by the time that's done, we've now got, I'm going to pop that just there. I can grab my slightly warmed milk, and this really is just very slightly warmed, right? The idea with your warmed milk is that it's going to speed up that process of proving, right? So it means that that yeast, that's a living thing just like us, right, has now had its food, it's going to have its water, and it's got warmth to make it sort of start breathing, right? If you can use cold water, it would just take a lot longer to prove, but some people would say it would then have a lot more flavour in it, right? But we want this to be quite quick. So it's not boiling hot by any means, right? It's tepid, right? Just lukewarm. And all I'm going to do is just sort of make a little well in the centre, and just as whenever I'm making bread, right, you can always add more. You can't take any out, right? Now, the last thing that I've nearly forgotten to add is 1 tablespoon or 3 teaspoons of oil, right? So I'm going to add that directly as the first ingredient that I'm going to add just in there. And obviously, I'm going to need on the table today, if you were needing in a bag, you would add it to the bag, right? And then all I'm going to do is add 3 little drops, right? So in, die, a tree. And as you know, you can always add more. You can't take any out. So then I'm going to give it a little mix. Kamusky, kamusky, kamusky. And what happens is that flour sucks up all that liquid, and you can see that it's all sucked it up. Then I can add some more, right? So in, die, a tree. Okay? And you kamusky, kamusky, kamusky. Now what I'm looking for is a soft but slightly sticky dough, right? Lots of people, right, would get to that stage and they say, oh, it's ready, right? But there's still flour in the bottom of the bowl, right? And it won't be combined. So I'm just going to add the tiniest amount, right? And really was the tiniest amount, just to suck that up. And then literally I can give that a really good mix in my bowl, just as so, until you have got a really lovely little dough. Now this dough is a little bit sticky, right? You don't want it too dry because the yeast then will struggle to sort of make your bread rise. You don't want it overly wet because you'll get covered, right? But that is the right consistency. If I hold that up, I'm hoping that you can see it's still quite sticky, right? But it makes it a really nice dough, right? So I'm just going to pop all of those bits just behind me, and then we've got our kneading. Now in yesterday's sort of pizza making cook along, we actually kneaded in a bag, which is great if you're a younger person because you can really get your hands stuck in that way. For bread making, right, and today's session, I'm actually going to do it on the table or at a both, right? So what we're going to do, we're not going to touch that yet, but the first job is I'm just going to put a little bit of bloud at a both, flour on the table just like that, and mix it round, right? Flour on your hands as well. Then you can get your dough and pop it onto that flour, right? I'm going to scrape all that out because I'm not going to waste it. I'm going to use that little spoon just there and pop it on. But don't put your hand straight into it because you'll get dough all over your hands. So let me just move that and pop that just under there. So all that we're going to do is I'm going to make sure I got plenty of flour on my hands, and I'm just going to roll it in my flour like that, and that stops it from sticking, right? When I do this in schools, I used to say, right, pretend that it's really hot, like you're playing hot potato, right? When we were kids, we played hot potato. You pretended something was hot and you passed it round, right? Apparently, it's not called hot potato anymore. It's called fireball, right? But it's more or less the same thing. Just keeping you down with the kids, right? But what we're then going to do, using my fingertips, basically, we fold with our fingertips, we push away with our palms, and then we turn, right? So we fold, or in actual fact, we don't push away with our palms, we push away with our knuckles, right? Push and turn. Fold, push and turn. Fold, push and turn. In Welsh, right? Plygu, gwthio, trwy. Plygu, gwthio, trwy. Plygu, gwthio, trwy. Now it's starting to stick to my hand, right? So I'm going to add lots of flour to my hands rather than to the table. We don't want it to be too dry, right? We're not making a snowman. So fold, push and turn. Fold, push and turn. Fold, push and turn. Fold, push and turn. Starting to stick to my hands again. Bit of flour on my hands, right? Fold, push and turn. Fold, push and turn. If it is really sticky and you've got dough all over your hands, the only thing that you can do is wash your hands and then start again, right? I'm going to add just a little bit more flour, right? Not a huge amount. And fold, push and turn. Fold, push and turn. And what we're trying to do, as I mentioned earlier, when you're kneading it, that's the important bit because you're trying to stretch that gluten, right? And then that gluten, therefore, allows our bread to rise because that yeast that's all stuck in the gluten now, it's all mixed in, right? It has had its food, it's had its water, it's going to start breathing, producing carbon dioxide, and as long as your bread is nice and stretchy, it'll rise really, really well. If it's not stretchy or it's too dry, it'll just stay as it is, right? It'll be like a brick. Now then, you will need for about 5 to 10 minutes, right? And as you start to knead and you get into a rhythm, I tend to use my palms, right? And I do push with my palms, right? And then I twist it round. Push and twist, right? You'll find your own sort of method. Some people knead like that. Some people carry on doing the fold, push and turn, however you want to do it. The only thing you shouldn't do, right, is sort of punch it, because punching doesn't do anything, right? And equally, if you're a polite young person and you'll just you'll make rubbish bread as well, right? So you have to stretch it, right? So I'm just going to leave this on a little sort of plate which I had there, but I've moved. So I'm just going to pop a little bit of flour on this plate, and I'm going to finish this off later. So I'm going to be making, I've got 8 there, I've got another 8 here, I've got 8 that I'm going to make in a couple of moments. I've got 24, is that right? Yeah, 24, I'm down to my maths then, 24 little, what am I making? Hot cross buns. Couldn't remember what I was making then. So we got those just there. Now, what I have done to save time is here is one that I made earlier, right? I kneaded it earlier and I just popped it in a little bag, and you can see that my bag has risen really, really well. You don't need to allow that to rise. You can knead and shape straight away, and then you can allow it to prove, right? But I've just done a little bit in preparation, right? And you can see I'm going to bang this bag down, right? And your dough, right, will be then knocked back. It'll all deflate, right? It'll go like that, right? That's just the carbon dioxide bubbles bursting, right? So all that we're going to do is we're going to take that off just like so. And in actual fact, I've added a little bit of oil to that bag, right? So just to stop it from sticking. And what I will do is, using this bag, I'll just pop that just over the top to stop it from coming dry, and then I can knead that out a little bit more afterwards. So I'm just gonna sort of a little bit more flour on my table, right? And this 200 gram mixture will easily make 8 little sort of hot cross buns, right? So I've got my mixture just there, and the next thing I need is just a little sort of knife, and I can cut that in half. And as I said, we're going to be making 8 little hot cross buns, so I can cut that one in half as well. And you're looking, if we were on the bake-off, right, we would be measuring them and weighing them by now to make sure they're all nice and even. If you feel like weighing them to make sure they're all the same sort of weight, you can do so. But I'm just going to do it by eye, right? Just make sure you use the maths and cut it in half each time. Now then, I'm just going to show you how to make 2 today. So the others, just whilst until I finish this session, I'll just pop over there, because they can be made afterwards, right? So we've got those ones just here, and I'll show you what to do with these little ones. So once you've got them like that, all that you're going to do is to make them into a bread roll. There's lots of ways of making little bread rolls, right? What I tend to do is I flatten it down just like that, and then I bring the edges in on a little bit of flour, right, just as so, until it's all lovely and smooth, and then I can turn them over and you get a lovely smooth top just like that, and you can see that we've got that lovely edge on it just as so. So I'm going to do exactly the same to this one. So pat it down just like that, and then you bring it into the edges just as so. On television you see all the chefs doing it in various ways, right? You see some chefs mixing it around like that, right? I find that quite therapeutic, but I can't seem to get a perfect sort of round. So this is how I found to do it over the years, right? Just bring the edges in, and as long as you're sort of making sure that it's all stuck together, you turn it round and you get a perfect little edge, right? So you're going to do afterwards the 8 of those. However, I'm just going to show you 2. These are then going to go onto a nice floured baking tray, right? You could put a little bit of greaseproof paper on there if you wanted to, I used all of my greaseproof yesterday, and I haven't got, I'm going shopping later to get some more ready for our biscuits tomorrow. So I'm just going to pop those straight onto a nice floured surface, and you can either put them closer together where they'll sort of be what we call kissing, right? But I like to put about 2 to 2.5 centimetres apart, and they will rise and they will start to kiss together, and that's a really good way of knowing when everything needs to go into there, right? I'm just going to remove my ingredients list. There we are, so you're able to see, because I think I'm going back into there all the time, right? Now then, the last thing that we need is for our crosses, right? So what we've got for our crosses, it was on the list, but I've now removed the list, right? But you've got 70 grams of flour just there. And what we're going to do is we're going to mix it with a little bit of water just to sort of make a little quick dough, right? There's lots of ways of making this. You could make it into a runny sort of paste, and you could drizzle it sort of over. I find it easier to sort of make a sort of more solid sort of paste, and you just sort of roll it out in your hand, right? That's the way that I found the easiest way of doing it. So we're now going to concentrate on our cross, and there's my water just there. So I've just got 70 grams of just strong bread flour actually, and all that I'm going to do is I'm going to add, I think it's, yes, it is dessert spoons on our list. I'm going to add 3 dessert spoons to start with of our water. Right? You don't want a runny paste. You're just looking for a little sort of to make it into a dough, right? So I need a little bit more, just until I'm going to add 5. I think I probably need. So give that a really good mix until you can see that I've just made a little dough just like that, right? You can see that it's not wet, it's not dry, right? But it's just a sort of dough just to so, right? Then all that we're going to do with this is I can pop that onto my surface, and all that we're going to do, a little bit more flour because it's a little bit sticky at the moment. We're just going to give it a little bit of a mini knead, right? So I'm just bringing it all in just like that. Make sure it's covered in your flour, and then a little bit of flour on your hands just until it's nice and smooth. There's nothing in here that needs to be necessarily sort of what we call developed, right? Because it's just flour and water. So you're just waiting until it's smooth like that, right? Then all that we're going to do is we're going to cut those into little pieces. And if you were making all of these together, then you need 16 little sort of strips for these little crosses, right? But I'm just going, and literally you only need the smallest amount, right? I find it easier to do them all individually. So I'm just going to quickly wash my hands because I've got dough all over my hands, and it's all sticking everywhere. So all that we are going to do is, there we are, my hands are nice and clean. Grab myself a paper towel, pop that into the bin, and I'm back in the room, you'll be pleased to know. So we've got those just there. Obviously I'm going to make the other ones afterwards. With these ones then, a little bit of flour on your hands. Where did my flour go? It went over there. And all that we're going to do, a little bit of flour just there, roll it in the flour just until it's coated, and then you'll be able to roll it in your hands just like that, right? And all that you're looking for is to get this as thin as possible, right? And then we're just going to layer it just over there. But before I layer it, what we do need to do is just brush the top of those. Now then, I did somewhere, there we are, I knew I had it, a little pastry brush, right? If you haven't got a pastry brush, just use your fingers to brush it over, right? But I got a little pastry brush just there, so this will help our little crosses to stick to, I'm hoping that you're able to see that. Can you see that? Yes. So just brush those over just like that, just gently. It doesn't have to be a bath, right, just until it's nice and shiny. And then all that you're going to do is pop one on just as so. Make sure they go underneath, because as they rise, they will rise up a little bit, right? And I'm not going to roll any more of those out, because here's some that I made earlier, right? And I made these about 10 minutes ago, 10 minutes before the start of the session. So I'm literally just going to pop those on just like that, and I can roll those out, make sure they're nice and thin, pop those on just as so, and you can see that you've got those ones on. And then literally all that we're going to do, once you've done all 8 of your little sort of hot cross buns, you can see those just there, right? Once you've done all 8, what you then do is you pop them into a warm sort of place. I put them on top of my oven because that generates quite a lot of heat, and just until they've risen and doubled in size, which normally takes about half an hour, and then you bake them off in a hot oven, as hot as you can possibly get your oven. So that's 200 or 220 degrees centigrade. That's gas mark 6/7, right? For 15 to 20 minutes, and they rise, and I promise you they are absolutely blassis yam, right? Now then, there's lots of other shapes that you can make, and if you don't want to make the proper crosses, then I'll show you one more way of putting a cross in. But if I click that button just there, I'm hoping that some other shapes that I made what is now 2 years ago. I was going to say last year, but we were in lockdown this time last year. It was actually 2 years ago over in Hawthorne with an adult community group. We were actually doing sort of hot cross buns for their children, it was. And you can see that we've got little smiley faces. We've got even more sort of lines around. And the other one that they did, someone didn't want those bits on top, but they still wanted a cross. So literally, they made their little bread roll and they put one cross line in that way, one cross in that way, and it's sort of made a lovely little sort of cross as well. So you've got lots and lots. You can see that one just there, and that opens out and you sort of have a dough sort of cross, and it's really, really pretty as well. So I'll get rid of that picture just there. So that's how to make our little hot cross buns. So I'm just going to clear up just here. Now's a good time. If you have got any questions about the hot cross buns that we've made today, if you pop them into the comments page, and either myself or one of the Happy team will be able to answer those questions for you. So I'm just going to pop those just over there. So I'm going to leave the room just for 2 minutes, but I'm not literally leaving the room. I'm just cleaning down, right? So I will go quiet. But if you have got any questions, I've got the screen on just in front of me so I can see any comments. So talk amongst yourselves just for 30 seconds, and I will be back in the room. So let me just wipe my table down, just as so. So as I mentioned earlier, just while I am cleaning down, I will be back tomorrow. This is the second of our live sort of Easter style cook-along sessions. I'm back tomorrow. It won't be at 4 o'clock, it's actually at 12:30 tomorrow, where we're making some delicious sort of Easter sort of biscuits, and which have got lovely fruit on top. They're absolutely fantastic, and I know that Andy from the Happy team will be posting that recipe card for you tomorrow morning, so that you have got those. But all that you need is most of it is basic store cupboard ingredients, but if you want to make them, then you will need some cream cheese and also some berries to go with it as well. So I've wiped my table area down, and as I said, once your hot cross buns have risen to twice their size, and they will quite happily, right? And if it takes more than half an hour, it takes more than half an hour, right? So they will rise until they're more or less sort of kissing, right? To double in size. Then I would, if I was you, just brush them in with a little bit more milk, just to make sure that they get that lovely brown colour. Then you pop them in your hot oven, as I said, 200 or 220 degrees centigrade, or gas mark 6/7 for about 15 to 20 minutes. After about 15 minutes, turn them round so that they get an even bake all the way round, and they'll come out and they look absolutely blasus iawn, right? I quite like things, mine really golden brown. That's why they don't look burnt, but they are golden brown, right? But you can see that they look absolutely fantastic. Then I managed to take these off earlier to check that they're cooked. All you need to do, if I shut up now, you can hear that they sound hollow like a drum, right? And you can see they look absolutely fantastic. Now, the ones that you do buy in the supermarkets and the bakery will have a nice shine on them afterwards, right? And they're sometimes a little bit sticky, and that's because they either put apricot watered down sort of apricot jam, or they might have watered down honey or something like that, right? Personally, I think they go a little bit sticky, homemade ones, if you do them like that. So I just like to put the milk on just to make them nice and shiny. But you can see that we have got our beautiful hot cross buns. And just imagine cutting those open, right? And then popping on a little bit, and I mean a little bit, of proper Welsh salted butter. And we're allowed it as a little treat because it's Easter, right? And we're still in lockdown, so we are allowed a little treat, right? And I promise you, these are absolutely, in the words of my West William friends, absolutely cowing lush. So that brings me to the end of today's session. I hope that you have enjoyed watching me make these delicious hot cross buns. I can't wait to eat these afterwards. And all the recipe cards, don't forget, are available on the Facebook page as well as our website. We will be back, as I said, tomorrow at 12:30, where we're going to be making our wonderful little Easter egg biscuits. And next week then, we've got some more half-term or end-of-term sort of school holiday sort of recipes. I can't remember what we're doing on Monday. Oh, it's National Carrot Day on Monday, so we're actually doing some carrot cake muffins on Monday, just remembered. And we're going to McDonald's, and we're going to do a muck cook-along Happy Meal, and this time, rather than the chicken nuggets that we made during the last half term, we're actually going to be making some hamburgers or cheeseburger sort of Happy Meal instead. So that brings me to the end of the session. I hope that you've enjoyed watching. Enjoy your Easter weekend, enjoy Good Friday, and I will see you at 12:30 tomorrow. Diolch yn fawr iawn, and coginio hapus.